Alright, I thought that video would give you guys just a little bit of an idea about how the comparison microscope works. I'm going to go over just a couple of terms here, or at least one term a little bit more quickly, and that is that of rules of evidence. Not that this is not important. Rules of evidence are extremely important because it's the rules of evidence that kind of lay out a certain foundation that an investigator has to be mindful of uh, when they're searching for and collecting and processing any evidence that they can identify. And of course, the reason for this is that if these rules aren't followed, then ultimately uh, evidence from a crime uh, might be suppressed at trial. And if the evidence is suppressed, then of course that can cause some significant issues with trying to secure a conviction. Now, not only that, however, keep in mind the rules of evidence are there for a reason. Partially, it's to protect an individual's rights. In fact, I'd say that's mostly what it's about. However, keep in mind those are there for a reason. If an individual or an officer fails to follow certain procedures when they're collecting evidence, not only do they violate somebody's rights, but they fail to do their job and answer all the questions that we've talked about in Unit 1 that we talked about last week in class, getting the who, what, why, where. Remember, it's not an investigator's first job to convict somebody or to catch a bad guy, but it's probably their first duty is to determine what happened if a crime was committed in the first place. So, moving on to forensic science, I have another video here that you guys can watch. This one you can also watch on your own. It is in the online classroom environment.
What is forensic science?
Forensic science is the application of science to law. But in practice, it's applying science to criminal law because there are, unfortunately, many instances in this country and throughout the world for that matter, where crimes are committed and require the skills of individuals who have a background in science or medicine. For example, odontologists, dentists who apply their skills to identifying individuals through their teeth. There are anthropologists who apply their skills in terms of identifying bones for identification purposes. There are psychiatrists, there are psychologists, there are pathologists who are called upon to examine bodies and to carry out autopsies. There are toxicologists, individuals who examine human remains for the presence of poisons and drugs. And there are individuals such as myself. I have a background in chemistry. I was educated as a chemist. And I apply chemistry and biology to the law, specifically to the criminal law. Now, the people who use chemistry and biology for legal purposes generally are employed in an
All right. Hopefully, that short video gave you guys some insight into forensic science. There's much more to that video. You can find it in the online classroom. If you go to Unit 2 and then take a break, there is a video and web field trip for you to take part in. Also, remember under Unit 1, there were web field trips under the Take a Break section, as there are many of the weeks. Make sure that you guys take a look at those. If nothing else, for discussion fodder for the following class. There's a lot of good information there, and in fact, some stuff you guys will probably be able to use in papers. So, I'm going to kind of shoot past criminalistics rather briefly, only by mentioning that criminalistics is it would be kind of a branch of forensic science. Criminalistics, just a little more specifically, is an interpretation of the things that are found within forensic science and providing a certain interpretation to the courts or criminal investigators to help answer the questions and meet the goals of those different participants within the criminal justice system. Now, on the automated fingerprint system, kind of a cool thing. Actually, in the Cedar Rapids Police Department, we've had an AFIS terminal, or an automated fingerprint identification system terminal, for quite a few years now. In fact, I think probably as many years as I've been in the department, so it's going to be nearing more than 20, I guess, now. this is an outstanding tool. Prior to the implementation of an automated fingerprint identification system, all fingerprint matches had to be made by hand. In other words, you would have an unknown latent print that was discovered at maybe a crime scene, and then you would have a pool of known fingerprints from people that may be suspects. A forensic scientist or criminalist or crime scene investigator would have to take and match those two prints by looking at one and looking at all the details. And by the way, in Unit 2, it explains some of these details that I'm talking about, so you can refer to those. However, they'd have to compare the details, the fine details of these fingerprints, and match enough up that they could say that one fingerprint belonged to one person, and the fingerprint that it was a crime scene belonged to that person. Very daunting task, and it had a problem that you really had to have an idea of who you were looking for, because otherwise it was just way too time consuming to try to match up fingerprints from large pools of known individuals. Well, AFIS kind of helps with that a little bit, because first of all, since it automates it, you can search a larger pool of individuals because it's not going to be quite as time consuming. However, keep in mind, even if a match is made with the automated fingerprint identification system, there has to be an individual who will still do the manual match to make sure that it is a positive match, and they can testify in court that the matches made are definitely positive. All right. I'm going to start to draw to a close at least the first part of what I wanted to talk about today, and turn the class over to Lynette. Keep in mind, as you guys review the Unit 2 information, or begin to preview, maybe we should say for some of you, the Unit 2 information, that I will also spend some time during our Unit 3 class time going over some of these crime scene processing issues in Unit 2. Something that's kind of near and dear to my heart, and I have a couple of good examples. It would just take way too long to try to explain them, and it would lose something, I think, if I did it and we weren't in person. So you can look forward to that next week. I'm going to have some real-life examples and such. But still, don't let that stop you guys today from finishing up reviewing Unit 1 and moving into Unit 2. I've got a little bit more of a message at the end of the class, so I'll talk to you then.